on that. If from the members, are we for it or are we not for it yet? Please, I think you can put it up on our WhatsApp group or on our chat over here, so then we know what decision to make, whether we want to meet or one-on-one, or we still go on with the Zoom meetings as we are going on for the time being.
Thank you so much, Rotarian Kalpa, and I welcome all the Rotarians and guests who have logged on so far. Rotarian Nicodemus, happy birthday. Professor Jared, welcome. Honorable Secretary Eva, welcome, welcome all. As we are now exactly at 1, I will call the meeting to order. If you'll kindly allow me a moment to play the national anthem. Thank you. I will now request, I'll now request Rotarian Kalpa, our Sergeant at Arms for today, to kindly say a prayer for us.
O God and giver of all good, we thank thee for our daily food. May Rotary friends and Rotary ways help us to serve thee all our days.
Thank you. With that, I will request everyone present to kindly lift a glass or a cup if you have something to drink. Alternatively, you can have your hand on your chest as we toast to the President of the Republic of Kenya. To the President. Thank you. I will now proceed to welcome all the visiting Rotarians and guests. I see today, amongst the visiting Rotarians, we have with us Betty, Rotarian Betty from Rotary Club of Milimani. Rotarian Betty, would you like to say a word?
Thank you, President. It's a pleasure to join your meeting, and I'm glad to be here, and to everyone.
Thank you so much. I will now scroll across the screen and request President Rosie Wainaina to kindly say hello.
Good afternoon, family and friends of Rotary. I'm Rosie Wainaina from RC Ridgeways, and my classification is marketing. and I'm happy to be here.
Welcome, welcome, President Rosie. I see we have past President Ozuem from Rotary Club of Abuja, the ambassadors. Welcome.
Good morning, my president. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome. And further visiting Rotarians, we have Lorraine, the Vice President of Rotary Club of Karen, with us. Lorraine. And Susan Akinyi, welcome. We also have Lucy from Rotary Club of Karen. Lucy, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President. Friends and family of Rotary, good afternoon. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Have I missed out on any other visiting Rotarian? If not, then I will request Rotarians to introduce their guests. And today, Anuja is not with us today, but Dr. Beatrice is here. And Dr. Beatrice, the guest today is Dr. Paul Jilani. So you will be doing an official introduction later on, but would you like to introduce him as your guest?
Most certainly. It's a real privilege. I've had the pleasure of an online meeting with our guest speaker, and we're in for a treat today. This is a gentleman who's passionate about what he does, and so Dr. Paul Jilani, I welcome you on behalf of the Rotary Club of Nairobi as my guest today.
Thank you so much, and all the pleasure is mine.
Wonderful. And I have two guests today. My first guest is Meera Pandit, who is the CEO of the Asian Foundation. Meera, thank you for being here and for your support. Would you like to say hello?
Hello, everyone, again. Thank you, President Ritesh, for this invitation. Lovely to be here. Looking forward to Dr. Paul Jilani's address to all of us, to the people I already know who have logged on, to Manubai, to the rest. Yeah, look forward to the session. Thank you so much. Be safe. Well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Meera. My next guest today is Shubrika Jori, who is a radio RJ and marketing professional. Shubrika, would you like to say hello? Shubrika? Okay, so do we have any other Rotarian who has a guest today? Right, in that case, we will proceed to announcements. And do we have any announcements? I believe the first announcement has to be from Rotarian Kalpa. Rotarian Kalpa? And Rotarian Winnie as well, who is our Youth Service Director. And she has two announcements today, very special ones. So Rotarian Winnie, kindly do make your announcements.
Thank you, President Ritesh. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians, friends. Youth Service Committee, in conjunction with the Rotaractors from RCNC, RCUSIU, RCKCA University, will be hosting Ms. Julie Kishuro, Head of Public Affairs and Communications MasterCard Foundation, this coming Saturday. That is on the 7th November from 6 p.m. Kindly register for this unforgettable event. Our second announcement is Youth Service Committee and the Community Service in conjunction again with our lovely Rotaractors are inviting you to tree planting ceremony to mark 90 years of Rotary Club of Nairobi. That will be on the 21st November at Karura Forest from 9 a.m. Masks and social distancing shall be adhered, so don't worry. You are all welcomed. A poster will be shared with further information and details. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rotarian Winnie. Thank you. And Congratulations to you and the entire Youth Service Committee for the incredible work you're doing. I can see Dr. Beatrice is joining me in clapping for you. Well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And any further announcements? I do have an announcement. The District Conference and Assembly is going to take place in March next year. And a poster has been shared, and I'm going to share the details once again on the WhatsApp groups and via email to all club members. It is going to take place at Mount Kenya Safari Club in Nanyuki. It's a very good venue. And the team is actually getting some very good speakers. It's going to be an event which is going to be attended both physically and virtually. The district committee is actually looking into the logistics as to how to go about having a hybrid district conference. So with that, any further announcements? Rotarian Rashmi, do you have an announcement?
No, thank you. I think we should listen to Professor Jilani now.
Wonderful. Thank you. I will now request Dr. Beatrice to kindly introduce our speaker for today.
Okay, well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our esteemed guest speaker, Dr. Paul Jilani, who, as I mentioned just a while ago, is a passionate supply chain logistics expert. And you will probably work this out from his long list of remarkable achievements, which I shall now attempt to elucidate. Dr. Paul Jilani is a seasoned supply chain logistics expert, certified healthcare supply analyst, and a certified stores and stock controller with over 13 years of experience. He is adept in developing strategic approaches to corporate procurement and supply chain. Dr. Jilani has worked at Tetra Pak, Mabati Rolling Mills, and few. And he holds a doctorate in global chain management from Walden University in the United States. Dr. Paul Jilani is also a lecturer at KCA University and a certified executive coach from Strathmore Business School. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our speaker today, Dr. Paul Jilani. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Beatrice. It is always my pleasure to share what I've learned, share what my experience, and share exactly what I'm passionate of doing. Before I share my screen, I'd want to start with giving an example or a slight story about supply chain. And I will go back to all of us when we are born, or some of us are parents, are mothers, fathers. Take a good example of a baby who is born. They are born the way they are, all of us know, and they have nothing which is attached to them, which is basically manufactured outside here in planet Earth. But what happens, the first thing which is attached to that baby is the one which separates the umbilical cord. And then other subsequent items come, like the tag, which identifies the baby, and then clothing and all these things. But now to go back to that first tag, which is being attached to separate the umbilical cord and the baby. That tag already has a supply chain. And that's the first item which has a supply chain and is attached to that baby. And then now all the other subsequent items attached to you until what we have worn today. I can see Beatrice here is having a nice necklace, nice earrings, a very wonderful dress. All these ones pass through a supply chain. That's how important a supply chain is. So, and that's why I'm passionate about, because this supply chain has a very big effect in our lives, in our day-to-day lives, in our businesses. And if we take a bit of seriousness on how this supply chain operates, then we'll live a good life. Our businesses will make profits. Our families will be, will be having an extra coin to save just by following the correct supply chain in what we buy, in what we do, and what we offer even to other people. So allow me to share my presentation, and looking forward to an interactive session after the presentation, and enjoy yourself as I start. Just to get back to you, especially on the main topic of the day, as the impact of supply chain disruption during and post COVID-19 pandemic. All of us are aware that this pandemic has affected the entire globe, and the supply chain here is the one which has been pushing the operations of the government, our institutions, our manufacturing institutions, even our families. So just to bring all of us into perspective, for those ones who might be having maybe a slight idea, or the ones who don't have an idea completely on what supply chain is all about, you'll allow me to read in the introduction. A supply chain is that network of organizations that are involved through the upstream and downstream linkages in the different processes and activities that produce value in the form of products and services in the hands of the ultimate customer or consumer. And then what is a supply chain disruption? These are major breakdowns in the production or distribution of supply chain, including events such as fire, machine breakdowns, specifically now in the manufacturing industry, natural disasters, quality issues, unexpected surge in capacity, and currently what we're experiencing now with COVID-19 pandemic. Just to give you an abstract of how a supply chain is all about, it starts with, if you at the bottom of this diagram, you'll find there's the demand, which comes from the customer. And that's where supply chain starts. With the demand, you get the demand, either it is a demand in terms of service for the service industry, either it is a demand of physical products. You get that demand, and from the demand now, you'll, through your team in the organization, you'll find that you now get raw materials based on the plannings, the schedules, you get raw materials. For the items which are imported, for example, then now you, after purchasing or buying through the supplier, you organize on how those items are going to reach you in the organization. You receive the items, goods are received in the warehouse, value addition starts in manufacturing. And then outbound warehouse, after value addition has been done, those items get back to the warehouse, and then preparation for dispatch to the final, to the outbound logistics, and then the consumer receives these items. During this time, you'll find now there's exchange of information, there's exchange of resources in terms of money and human resource, of which now, by explaining it to you like this, during COVID-19, the most important part here, which has made supply chain to move forward, was mostly the exchange of information globally. And this is why even now we are using Zoom to learn on matters supply chain, just exchange information so that we can learn. Similarly to our organizations, both in the service industry and in the manufacturing world, and also in the non-governmental organizations. All of them follow more or less a similar structure of how supply chain is, where you have procurement, where you have operations, management, and then the consumer. Now, supply chain disruption during COVID-19 pandemic, what did you experience as industry experts, as small business owners, as families? First of all, we start with production suspension. Giving a good example of an organization like the former organizations I worked for, like Tetra Pak, we have Mabati rolling mills, we had production suspension. Why? Lack of raw materials, which mostly raw materials is received from, is ordered and procured from overseas, because there was no movement of either air movement or road movement or sea movement. And then detention and demurrage. All of us are aware that when in March, when the lockdown came, everyone was at home. People were really fearing COVID-19, and we stayed at home. So items at the port of entry, items at the port of exit, everything came to a standstill. We got affected as organizations, we got affected as families, we got affected as non-governmental organizations on how to proceed with the value addition or even the supply chain at that moment. And this was a very big disruption, which even now you'll find many countries globally, they are really trying to catch up with some of this disruption. And then blank sailing and interrupted logistics at the ports. You'll find that there was no movement, even ships were not moving. This had a very big effect to us, as I've said earlier. Toppled supply chains. What do I mean by toppled supply chain? These supply chains now, things had to change. The way supply chains used to happen before COVID, it is completely changed, because now we have to look for different means and ways of making organizations, either small business organization, to survive. Yeah, and then lockdowns affected transport across the value chain. We experienced like maybe 2 to 3 weeks in March where even cargo planes were not accepted in our country. This effect was globally. And these lockdowns had a very big effect. Yeah, because you'll find even getting PPEs, for example, it was a very big problem. Maybe government had to use chartered planes to go to China and bring PPEs to our country. This was expensive. This was really pressing budgets for organizations, budgets for companies, especially manufacturing firms where they use a lot of PPEs, possible fluctuations and increasing costs. You can all of you resonate with me by in the month of March and April, even the prices for PPEs the cost was very high, because cost of production and transport cost was high. And this one is still affecting us up to now, because things have not they have not started to flow as smooth as it used to be. Service interruptions, the hospitality industry, everything went to ground zero. Why? Because now we were only thinking of how do we go out? How do you visualize a situation whereby you can find yourself going on holiday at home? And that's where technology is taking us. Yeah, you just sit down in your house and be in a platform where you can go to China, you can go to Singapore, you can go to Hawaii, for example, to visit while at the comfort of your home. Hospitals got affected, where Beatrice and maybe some of us in the audience are working. Why? People even feared going to the hospital. Yeah, and then now came that part where now hospitals also got affected so much, because now they could not manage even the population which used to come to the hospital. And that one is we're already experiencing that as we speak. And then airlines and schools. Yeah, all of these are the supply chains which are part of us, and they got disrupted by COVID-19. Absenteeism due to lockdown. Yeah, we had scenarios where you'll find a staff of Mabati Rolling had gone to the village in Kakamega, and then he was locked there for 3 months. What effect does it have? organizations had to find themselves hiring extra labor so that they can sustain operations. And then also the age bracket, staff over the age of 58 years, they could not be allowed to come to work. And especially manufacturing firms, you find they needed staff to be there, especially those guys in the production line. They're supposed to be there physically. This one was really pressing organizations for them to be at work. And then staff with pre-existing conditions. Yeah, these are value-adding staff in the organizations, in the economy, but they could not, unless you had a function which you can work from home, then it was easy and even it is easy for you to work. But now for organizations like manufacturing, industries, hospitality industry, where can you discharge your duties if now your duties require you to be there in person? Yeah, and now the disruption, supply chain disruption post COVID-19. Black swan events, had to predict disruptions like COVID-19. These are things which now as industry leaders, as organization owners, as families, we need to prepare ourselves. This is an indication that maybe COVID-19 is not the only pandemic which we should be expecting in the future. Maybe 100 years back, there was a pandemic. We had Ebola some few years back. And this one, to make matters more interesting, this is the only pandemic which has brought the globe at a halt. And it's only supply chains who, even as we speak, the supply chain function which has been pushing economies to come back to normal. But now, how do we prepare ourselves? We need to prepare ourselves, be able to predict, be able to predict in future what are other pandemics which can affect us. Threat of cyber attacks. We are using almost now 100% of our communications on Zoom. I could see now the other day, Zoom as an organization has made almost 300% profit because of this. But technology also has its own effect. These are things which we need to prepare ourselves as families, as organizations like Rotary Club, and even ourselves as individuals, that nowadays we operate almost 100% on gadgets like phones, computers, and all these things. How do we protect ourselves? And now, since we have these solutions, also we have people on the other side who are taking advantage to defraud us as users. We need to take cognizance of this and prepare ourselves to avoid such pandemic, such disruptions, the impact of COVID-19. Changing trade policy, the wars which are happening now, China versus US trade wars. Yeah, going back to maybe how the media is, we are seeing from the media that maybe COVID-19 came from China. Yeah? We are not sure how this one is, but it is affecting trade wars. And China is one of the countries which almost each and every country in the world is dealing with China. So what policies are taking cognizance of maybe that this pandemic emanated from China? What policies can we come up with as supply chain experts, as business owners, to be able to avert this and still proceed with business in future? And then economic sanctions, being US, Mexico, and Iran. Some of these are propelled now because of COVID-19. Yeah? They used to be there before, but you'll find that we have an extension of such as a result of what we are facing and the challenges which have come with COVID-19. Protests and strikes, the pockets of our staff, which we have employed, either in our organizations or even the staff we have at home, in our houses, even ourselves. You see, the spend muscle has really shrinked. The level of behavior because of issues related to COVID-19 effects from our homes are leading to protests and strikes in our organizations. Because definitely if a staff has issues at home, the place where they spend a lot of time is at work. How do we avert this as supply chain? Because remember, our organizations, these are purely supply chain. So we need to also take care of such things. And border delays, as I've mentioned earlier, lack, these heightened restrictions, and then different regulations which have come in different administrations. You'll find they have different ways of how do they protect items which come in the country, which can be a catalyst of COVID-19 infections. And then climate activism. We also, during lockdowns, we had clear skies. And these are some of, as much as COVID-19 has affected us negatively, but that lockdown has made us have gains on matters climate change, which we could have achieved these gains maybe in the next 100 years. Now we can see these are learnings. We might be having protests in future, or even now some countries have protests. Or how do you manage climate change, especially in our supply chains? New environmental regulations.
See now?
We're going now.
Territorial disputes due to new trade routes. As supply chain experts, for us to make sure that operations move well in the organizations, organizations have been forced to change routes so that they can get their supplies in time. They can also change routes in selling what they produce. This one has been, it tends to be a bit more expensive, even to organizations. But how do we take advantage of this and bring change, bring positive change in our organizations, and even in what we do every now and then? And then how do you prepare for supply chain disruptions? You all, I know you all agree with me that no one was prepared for COVID-19. But now, as a learning, how do we do this? Most organizations, either small organizations, big organizations, multinationals, or even our own families, had we had an emergency plan? Did we have an emergency plan? Or how do we sort out in case there's an emergency? Did you have an emergency plan of how we can push ourselves? Because even families, those are supply chains. Did we have an emergency plan? We didn't have, most of us. Even organizations didn't have an emergency plan. It is critical now to give this function more attention. More attention. We need to have plans, just to prepare ourselves for coming pandemics, coming disruptions in our businesses, in our families, and in our supply chains. Build up inventory. I know inventory is money in another format. And this one is a very, very big problem in most organizations. But now we need to go back as experts, as organizations, as leaders, as CEOs. Do we prompt our staff that they need to make sure that they have minimal stock? Minimal stock. You can put a bit of excess stock only for those items which are relevant and more critical to our businesses. And this one we used to see when lockdowns, when we were experiencing the first lockdown. Everyone went to the supermarket to buy food stuff. We have like countries, some of the countries, they didn't have, there was a shortage of like tissue papers. But was it relevant for us to buy all these items and keep them in the house? Those are some of the things which, as either small business owners, bigger organizations, our families, we need to build inventory only for those items which can have a negative effect to our operations. Conduct supply chain vulnerability audit. These audits are key. These audits are key. How do we map up our supply chain and take care of those vulnerable areas of supply chain? It is important. I know these are some of these things are very new to you, or maybe you might be having an idea, but it is important to have such things for us to be sustainable in what we do in our businesses. Identify backup suppliers. Most of organizations had their suppliers, maybe 100% were coming from China. What was the effect during COVID-19? This one now, now gets us back to where we're coming from as a country. We need to come up with our own market. The build-up of manufacturing, small manufacturing institutions, like manufacturing of sanitizers, manufacturing of face masks. Yeah, that's why I was just reading somewhere in my time of research, and you could see for the last few months, we've been having an upsurge of small business registration. So many businesses, because now this is something which have come, and it has a benefit. So as much as we have negative benefits for COVID-19, we still have seen a lot of innovation which has come up. All right, and then diversify supply base. Yeah, try to have different sources of supplies. Try to diversify your supply chain. Try to diversify what you do. If you used to do tours and travel, for example, then you need to diversify and do something different. For example, instead of if you used to sending groups to Mombasa, now look for those single people. There are people who love traveling alone. Yeah? Get those people. There are people who want to go and probably get spouses somewhere else in this world, or even in this part of the world. Go for those people. Yeah? Because that's a service supply chain. How do you sustain yourself? Yeah? Partner with logistics experts. From where I sit, I know logistics is a critical function, and it needs a lot of professionalism. How do you bring value in your supply chain? Partner with those people who offer these services, or you can start another wing, another organization within your organization, which can hire experts and handle your logistics issues. All right? Adopt risk evaluation tools, SWOT analysis, the use of root cause analysis. This will affect mostly as you prepare and push on yourself for future pandemics. Steps to take when disruptions has occurred. Communicate with your customers. Did you communicate with your customers when the pandemic came? Did you even communicate to your spouse if you are locked in another part of the world? Because you remember you are part of a supply chain in your family. Did you communicate to your spouse, or you took advantage of you being alone wherever you are? Yeah? And then evaluate all critical components of the supply chain. Map up your supply chain and realize what is critical, and give more importance on that specific component so that you don't fail your customer, you don't fail your stakeholders, you don't fail the shareholders of the organizations you work for. You don't fail your family, all right? And then estimate available inventory. I know most organizations have gone low on inventory. You know, a lot of materials went bad during that time, especially for perishable, especially now our industry, our flower industry, vegetable industry got affected. Yeah, but now in the future, what do? You need to work in collaboration with other stakeholders in the supply chain to make sure that you keep minimum inventory, so that you don't find ourselves having an overstated asset base in your books, or an understated asset base in the books. And this one, from where I sit as an expert, this is a very big problem to organizations. Warehousing and inventory management. It's an area which organizations have neglected. Even our families, we've neglected our store in the house. What does it have? Yeah? Even in our house, are we using fast in, fast out? You buy a maize meal. What happens is what you bought last week, you push it at the other side, you put what you bought today in front. So whoever is preparing food uses what you bought yesterday. What happens for the one which you bought 2 weeks back? It has a very big effect. Assess buyer behaviors. Like now, what is happening? Do you know what your buyers want? Assess that. assess that, put in your forecasts. Put in your forecast and try to understand what your buyers will want, what your consumer will want, so that you just deliver what is available, what they need, and you avoid putting a lot of stock in your warehouse. Optimize production and distribution capacity for safety. In most of the establishments, I know what I'm saying. Dr. Manu Chandaria is going to resonate with this, being in the manufacturing industry. Those few years when I used to work in Mabati Rollings a few years back, a lot of optimization in production, distribution capacity, and involve also fuse in safety in what you do. And I've been mentioning a lot about safety, about families here. Even whatever happens in our houses, are we safe in what we do? 6 months down the line, we had our kids in the house. Were our kids safe? Yeah, because this is also part of a supply chain. All right, identify logistics flexibility. If there is no sea transport, can you use air transport? Do you have an alternative? And this is where now government comes in. That like government of Kenya needs to provide different ways of that. In case you don't have, there is no road transport, you can use rail transport. Yeah. This also has a very positive effect in our supply chain. Evaluate cash flow impact. Do you have enough reserves? Or do you have a lot of stock in your warehouse which really has held a lot of money which you could have been using for other value adding activities in your organization? And then business continuity during and post COVID-19. What do we do as industry experts, as small business owners, either in hospitals, either in manufacturing setups, in the service industry? What are we supposed to do? Procurement and supply chain sits at the center. Why does it sit there? Procurement, they handle 80% or over 80% of any organization's budget. The only thing which does not pass through procurement is only salaries. Yeah? But over 80% of budgets goes through procurement. We have seen this in our organizations, even government being the biggest spender. Procurement has been an issue. But now, how do we help from the executive leadership? We need to have a clear understanding of what is happening as executives. How much are we supposed to give to procurement so that they can bring value, especially now during COVID-19, because if organizations have a small amount of budget to spend, how do you influence as executive on matters procurement? This is key because that's where investment goes on. Finance people, they need to work closer to procurement and understand how much do they have to provide and make sure that they get what they want within the supply chain with the meager resources which they have. And then customers. There's supposed to be information flow from both sides. Customers, you need to understand, what does your customer want? So that you are able to supply at the time when they need. I'm going back to the family setup. Who is your customer at home? Do you speak to them and advise them? This is the money we have for this month. This is the only money we can use, especially during COVID-19. Do you talk to your kids? Do you talk to your spouse? Do you talk to your grandchildren? This is what we have, because those are your customers at home. They'll always be looking forward to seeing what you provide when you go out. Suppliers. Yeah? Are your suppliers able to supply? Or you have to go back and resign the contracts which you did? Do you have a caveat there that now, since you cannot supply, or since we don't have cash flow now, can we extend our payment terms? Can we extend our payment terms so that all of us are able to survive? Yeah. Some of the key things we need to remember, especially from this very simple diagram, is it's better to have some structures in a chaotic situation. You saw what happens, sorry to say this, but what has been happening about misappropriation of funds when government was buying PPEs. As much as we are in a critical state, we need to have structures in place. Follow structures. This one will be avoiding to have major crisis in our procurement function or in our supply chains. Do you just buy because there's a crisis? Come up with structures of how do you handle a specific requirement when in a chaotic situation. It may be a resource-intensive process, but also collaborative. You have to collaborate between internal and external stakeholders. Sit down and share information, yeah, so that you are able to handle issues within the supply chain using what is available without misappropriation of resources in terms of human resource, in terms of investments which are there, and also time, because time is of essence in everything. Try to identify as many risks elements as possible and assign likelihood impact score. It might sound very complicated, but it's doable. Consider efficiency gains by adopting technology. This is exactly what is happening. I'm pretty sure some few months back you used to meet physically. Yeah? See what is happening. I'm holding this webinar, I'm in Kericho as we speak. Yeah? And some of them probably are out of the country, in Nigeria. Yeah? Consider efficiencies. Are there functions in your organizations which they don't need people to be at work? Are there functions which now have been declared redundant? Embrace technology. Technology is everything. So long as you are able to fund that investment. And even in technology, there are different levels of technologies. Organizations which are big, they have systems which are bigger. But even now, even the small organizations, we have technologies which can assist either in your procurement function, in your communication function, and all what have you. Yeah? Prioritize key suppliers. This is the time for organizations to map up and see who is that key supplier who is keeping me afloat. If they're going under, try to assist them. Extend their payment terms. If you feel that you can invest something to bring them up, especially now with our upcoming youth, as organizations, big organizations, small organizations, let us embrace each other. Yeah? Let them bring them on board. And by doing that, we are making our economy to be stronger and our supply chains become stronger also. Understand suppliers enhance health and safety plan. Is your supplier safe when they deliver stuff at your premise? Yeah? Is your transporter safe? Yeah? Make sure that such things happen. Contact high-risk suppliers, agree on supply plan, and manage performance against plan. By high-risk suppliers here, I mean those suppliers who probably supply raw materials which are part of what you're producing. Suppliers who supply machines, suppliers who supply key spare parts, for example. Make sure these suppliers are well attended. Yeah? If you're in a service industry, for example, who is your supplier to supply food in your kiosk? Who is your supplier to supply medicine in your hospital? Make sure these people, contact them and share information, agree on plans, because this is not the time for you to work as an individual. We need to collaborate. We need to partner for us to gain value. Yeah? Identify suppliers to reduce or eliminate. COVID-19 has even taught us who is that supplier you can hold on dearly. Yeah? This one goes back also even, what friends do we have? If you had a friend whom you've never talked since COVID-19 started, then that's not your friend. Chuck that person out from your friends list. And maybe come back to me and adopt me as one of your friends. Even if this is the first time you are hearing my voice. Yeah? Centralize and review contract documents and identify actions to take if obligations can be met. Yeah? Documentation is very, very important. This is what can push us to another level. Yeah? Customer and contract management. Evaluate contracts to identify demand impact and cancellation on delay actions. Yeah? If things are not working because of COVID-19, sit down with your team, your legal team, evaluate this thing, these contracts. Whenever you cannot evaluate, then cancel them or delay actualization so that you can do things at the right time. Identify new demand. Yeah? Yeah? That you can quickly garner and reshuffle supply. Yeah? Look for an alternative. If things are not working in your business now, look for something else. Yeah? It's worth trying something new which can bring value because things will never be the same after COVID-19. Yeah? Diversify or expand supply network by executing rapid sourcing for incremental needs. Yeah? Transition to digital RFX and processes. Here now, we need to be in a position of embracing technology in our supplier pre-qualification, supplier management. There are tools which you can use. We should not go back to those processes like the manual tender processes, which there's a lot of collusion when people are pre-qualifying. We can save a lot by adopting computerized, digitalized supplier pre-qualifications, supplier management processes, and this is where we can save a lot as organizations. Accelerate the qualification process for alternative suppliers. How do you handle a situation whereby your main supplier cannot supply? You need to have an alternative. And that alternative, you need to go through the digitalized, computerized processes of supply evaluation. They'll give you almost 100% of what you need through an online platform. Identify and tap new supply networks. Yeah? At the onset of COVID-19, we used to buy, what do you call this, ventilators outside. Now we have our young men here who are doing it at a very reasonable cost. Yeah? Those are some of the suppliers we need to be looking at. Empowering our youth, bringing them on board, and we improve our economy. Maintain fraud and vendor management safeguards. During COVID-19, people have taken advantage of this pandemic through fraudulent processes, especially on vendor management. Yeah? As organizations, it doesn't matter small, big, multinational and all these things, we still need to practice supplier due diligence. Supplier due diligence is important. Yeah? Don't skip on pre-qualification. You need to make sure that collect compliance documents, because we have a lot of people who are not honest in this world, especially now during COVID-19. Yeah? Our pre-qualification process, let us embrace technology and try to pre-qualify, as I've mentioned earlier, getting documents which are compliant. And by doing this, we will be saving a lot by not bringing on board suppliers who are not compliant. Social responsibility. Yeah? We need to partner with strategic suppliers to mitigate impact on employees. During COVID-19, did we manage even to go back and see how our customers are doing? Or even our suppliers are doing? Yeah? This is key. Explore small or local suppliers. I've mentioned about this. Pay suppliers quicker than standard terms. Consider a business case for circular procurement. Let us buy items which we can extend the lifespan. By extending the lifespan, we save on our raw materials. Yeah? Let us extend the lifetime by servicing what we have. Yeah? Long-term supply chain and risk mitigation, reliance over cost optimization, treat the cost and risk trade-off very carefully, have plans for different time horizons and scenarios. Yeah? I want to bring something different here, which probably might be very new to, or you might have heard about it. Supply chain and executive coaching. Supply chain coaching, the process of equipping organizations and individuals with tools, knowledge, and opportunities they need to develop, grow, and leverage these competencies to become more effective. There is also coaching, and it has its benefits. Coaching has proven to be 60% more effective than formal training in improving performance. Research says that training alone increased productivity by 24.4%, while it delivered an 88% improvement when combined with coaching. We need to coach our staff. We need to coach our kids. We need to coach ourselves so that we can have a positive effect in supply chain. Given all these strengths, supply chain coaching contributes directly to the bottom line of organizations. I could not have finished my presentation without touching on matters healthcare, because this is all about COVID-19. Yeah? How have we been delivering healthcare? It has been so tough. But again, things had to come out, and organizations and stakeholders had to come up with different ways of how do we deliver healthcare. That's why telemedicine came in. We now can buy drugs online. We can sit down and get specialized services through Zoom or through telecommunication. Yeah? Patient perception. Though as we speak, there are some other patients who feel that they need to see a doctor face to face. But things are changing, because how can you see a doctor if there's a lockdown? COVID-19 has brought this. Healthcare infrastructure. Organizations, even government, used not to even budget a substantial amount of money on matters healthcare. Now this is changing. And it is bringing a very positive effect on our healthcare infrastructure. Medical education. We've learned a lot online. Organizations have spent a lot, government has spent a lot in communication through the stream media and radios, televisions, on how medical matters COVID-19 are all about. Research and publications, and many other things. As I conclude, allow me to read these few statements. When your supply chain is operating and disrupted, it's easy to take it for granted. However, in times of trouble, having a good long-term plan in place is essential. Supply disruptions are inevitable, but by planning your response carefully, evaluating potential supply chain risks, and diversifying your suppliers, you can help prepare for even the most unprecedented circumstances. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward for your questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Paul Jilani, for this very insightful and educational talk. And I want to thank all the members and the visitors who have attended today. And yes, the meeting has lasted a bit longer than expected, but it was so enlightening and educational that it would be wrong of us to have interrupted. So we thank you, Doctor, for this wonderful presentation.
Most welcome.
And in closing, I'll now request. I believe Rutirian Anuja is with us. Rutirian Anuja. Right, I think she had. Anuja, are you with us? Right, I will ask Rutirian Rashmi. Rutirian Rashmi, could you please give a vote of thanks to our speaker for the day?
Thank you, President Ritesh. Professor Gilani, Professor Dr. Gilani, thank you so much for a very realistic assessment of how supply chain affects every aspect of our lives. As somebody who's worked in the media industry, I know that it was not the journalists and the managers, but the supply chain people who actually made sure the newspaper reaches all of us at 5 a.m. in the morning by following a very complex system of management, where they ensure that the newsprint comes and it is there in the warehouse and it is there in the ships and there is an order that has been placed for it. Managing seamless supply chains is is both a very accurate science and an art. And it is fascinating, that you could bring it down to our level and we could all understand what you were talking about, especially in relation with COVID, where I think supply chain management tricks are applicable to every household. Thank you so much for helping us understand it, and also helping us know how to tweak our own supply management systems at home in the wake of the COVID pandemic, and also for your time to spare, the time that you spare for having a conversation with the club members. Many thanks.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate for your time.
Thank you. And Rotarian Anuja is with us, but there is a technical issue. She's not able to unmute, and wishes me to thank you, give you a heartfelt thank you on her behalf. She's so happy that you could join us, as are all of us. Thank you so much. And there are some Rotarians and guests who are giving in some questions, and we request you, if you can please stay on for another 10 or 15 minutes, if possible, to answer some questions. But before we do that, our Sergeant at Arms for the day is Rotarian Kalpa. So Kalpa, do you want to say something, share a joke, or do you want to fine us before we get to Q&A?
Well, I think I would like to share a joke with everyone. For the thank you, Dr. Jilani. That was a very interesting. I come from a manufacturing unit, so I do understand most of what you talked about. But yes, the pandemic put us, we didn't really know how to go and what to do about it. I come from essential products, so we were in production all the time, though we did have lockdowns. Because of essential products, we were able to get our products to Nairobi and to the other places. But yes, but it was very insightful of what you said, of what we need to do further if this one. But yes, as a joke, there's one joke. A car was involved in an accident in a street. As expected, a large crowd gathered. That always happens in Kenya. If you realize, whenever there's an accident, you have people all gathering all around. A newspaper reporter, anxious to get his story, could not get near the car. Being a clever sort, he started shouting loudly, "Let me through! I am the son of the victim." The crowd made way for him. Lying in front of the car was a donkey. All those who are not having their video on, please pay up, and the rest of you also. I think we've had a wonderful talk. We've got some very good insights. So all of you, please pay up. And I think Rotary Club of Nairobi has been the highest for SAA this year, I think. So I think let's just keep it to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kalpa. And I see Rotarian Anuja is with us. Anuja, thank you so much for this brilliant guest. Would you kindly like to say a few words?
Yes, I just would like to say thank you so much, Dr. Jilani. I heard your presentation. There's something going on with my computer. I'm not sure whether it's network drop. But thank you. I know you've done a marvelous job of making a very technical and highly complex subject very accessible. And I think that one of the great things about a good teacher is that they can break it down. And thank you so much for that. It's such a pleasure to have KCA represented at Rotary Club, because KCA now has a Rotaractor Club almost in formation. And so we're almost there. And so I love the fact that my two lives are coming together all the time. And thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Anuja.
Thank you so much, Anuja. Thank you, Dr. Jilani. And we will officially close the meeting and then go towards the question and answer segment. In closing, I'd like to say thank you to Rotary Club of Karen, Rotary Club of Milimani, Rotary Club of Ridgeways, Rotary Club of Abuja, the Ambassadors, Rotary Club of Nairobi Central, and to all visiting and guests. If you happen to have a teacup or something to drink, kindly do raise it. Alternatively, hand to the chest. And this is to Rotary the world over. Rotary the world over.
Rotary the world over.
Rotary and Rotaract the world over. Yes, I stand corrected. Thank you all so much. And meeting is officially closed. We'll now request your questions to come into the inbox and an announcement for next week's meeting. We are pending confirmation, but we are most likely to have next week with us as speaker, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. So thank you so much. And question and answers now. We have a question from Rotaractor Nicholas. Nicholas, kindly unmute yourself and ask your question.
So, thank you so much, Rotarian Ritesh, and good afternoon, guys. So I've enjoyed the talk, this being my field, and I've really enjoyed the talk. It's very, very much informative. And he mentioned something about supply chain and warehouse and inventory department not being very well looked at. And my question to Dr. Jilani was, if you could change one thing about the procurement and supply chain industry now, what would this be? Yes. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Nicholas. If I would change something about procurement now is to make that professional, or make that profession to be understood, to be a key profession in our lives. That is something which I'm always looking forward to change, and I keep on telling those people who work in procurement, for example, to understand the impact they have in the entire supply chain. Let me give you a simple example, and this one goes back to our homes, for example. What do we do when you go to a supermarket? How many of us even check the prices of common items which do the same purpose? How many of us even check the expiry period of what we buy? And remember, all of us buy, all of us procure. All of us, even if you use public transport, if you do public transport in the morning, the first service you do is to buy that service. You have a very bigger impact of reducing costs, having a good influence, a proper influence in what you buy to the environment. Instead of driving, you can use the train. Instead of driving, you can share your vehicles within the estate. Instead of all of us using 4 vehicles at once, you can use one, and you have a positive impact to the environment. So going back to your question is, first of all, to make supply chain and procurement professionals know the impact of that profession. Know the impact of that profession. That's what I can change now. If you know the impact of that profession, you'll work professionally. And then now you've mentioned about supply chain and inventory not well, having that area of inventory management and warehousing having been neglected. Yes, it is true, because even what I'm doing now, I'm in Kericho and specifically in Ketepa to train supply chain experts, mostly on warehousing. And what I've seen here is that one is a totally neglected area. And people have forgotten that whatever you keep in the store is money in another format. That's money in another format. And in organizations either have been overstating the value of the store or understating the value of the store because they don't have an idea of what they are keeping. Probably what they keep is obsolete and they don't have an idea. Or they buy excessive because of lack of proper planning and arrangement. Yeah. So by putting a bit of emphasis, because you buy fine, you'll procure, well, you'll procure, but after buying, how do you take care of what you've bought? How do you take care of what you've bought? And that's now what we are supposed to do. As an expert in that area, I would want people to understand the value of that function, procurement. And all of us buy. It doesn't have to be in a work environment. All of us buy. And when you buy, how do you protect what you've bought? So that value or that cost which you use to buy, you at the end of the day, you get value from it. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you, Dr. Jilani. Asante sana.
Karibu sana.
Thank you. And the next question is from Rotarian Anuja. Anuja?
Right, and Dr. Jilani, I heard your comments about efficiency and realizing efficiency through technology.
Yes.
And you know, my fear because you know, Rotary, we are very much social justice focused, economic social justice focused. So the fear is that if we take on the efficiency through technology mandate and really follow it through, are we at risk of an AI overload and then losses of jobs in the future? Because this is our greatest fear going into the new economy. What are your thoughts on that?
Wow, that's quite a technical question, and but I love the question because even let me start with an example. At my age, I know I'm still very young at heart, but since the day I was born, some few years back, up to now, I've evolved until where I am now. And even our operations have been evolving. And for me to remain relevant as me in this life, I have to evolve with what is happening now in the planet. So efficiency in technology is key as we speak, and we can see this. So as an organization, Rotary Club, what we need to do is we need to introduce different ideas of how we can change our employees to embrace what they are doing, but in a technological way. If there's someone who is doing, for example, procurement, instead of doing that procurement in the manual way of like doing purchase orders, handwritten, then they need to embrace using ERP systems. Why? Because we can see, even during COVID-19, we are not supposed to use paper-based orders, for example. If you use paper-based orders, then we end up transmitting that disease. So already we are being moved to using technology. So to avoid Rotary Club as an organization to avert those job losses is to push our employees to embrace technology, do a bit of capacity building. Even to the most old people, we need to bring them on board with the simplest ways of trying to use technology. You can imagine now, each and every, even my grandmother in the village, some few years they used to use that small phone which didn't have it's not an Android, didn't have a screen which you can watch videos. 2 years back when I went there, she told me, can you buy for me a similar phone like yours? Nowadays, she's also sending voice notes in WhatsApp to me. And she's almost 100 years old. So there's always a way of trying to educate our staff to also embrace technology, because at the end of the day, technology is moving in a current speed of the power speed. And if we don't do that, then we'll find ourselves alone as an organization, as Rotary Club, we'll find ourselves alone. And we find even we will not be able to perform some other functions because we decided to put technology aside. So for me, I feel efficiency technology, we cannot avoid it for now. We have to push that way. And for us to avert the issue of business losses, then we need to come up with programs which, for those staff whom we're already having in our institution, then they can have a bit of, they know technology, they have a bit of knowledge on technology to be able to have that value in the process of your supply chain as Rotary Club. I hope I've shedded a bit of light in your question.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Jilani. No problem. I know we all have to evolve, but unfortunately, I just feel that those of us who are disadvantaged people will find it harder to adapt and change. And I understand your point about capacity building, and that's where the need is, and reskilling people. So I think that's where we're going to go forward as well. Thank you.
Most welcome.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Paul Jilani, for your time and for the wonderful information you have shared with us. We've all learned quite a lot. And I'm just going through the inbox to see whether there are any more questions. Are there any more questions? Anyone with one more question? If not,
Ritesh, sorry, President Ritesh, Nicholas has asked just one question.
Yes.
Dr. Jilani, if you could very quickly say the opportunities for coaching as a professional to young professionals in this field, where else could they get coaching from?
You're breaking. I didn't get your question. You're breaking.
Yes.
Could you just tell Nicholas, and maybe he'll be able to get in touch with you
Hello?
privately as well, about coaching?
Hello?
Coaching
Yes.
opportunities in procurement.
I think there might be a technical problem, but I have got Nicholas's email address and will link the two of you, because I believe he's asking about coaching opportunities in your field, because he's also in the same field.
That's a great idea, Dr. Burgess. That's a good idea.
So with that,
would that be okay, Dr. Jilani?
I have no problem about that.
Okay, wonderful.
well, with that, I think it's only right for us to thank, firstly, we thank Anuja for introducing us. And we must give a very heartfelt thank you to Dr. Paul Jilani for educating us, for sharing with us such important information, and most importantly, for spending so much of his time with us. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And we look forward to further engagement.
Thank you so much also for this opportunity. And I'm also looking forward to sharing much more value with the organization, especially in this field. I am pretty sure you'll be able to, when you use all the different parameters on matters supply chain, you'll be able to reach much more people in your world of service. and which at the end of the day, for me, I'll be getting a lot of fulfillment from that. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And yes, in closing, Dr. Beatrice, the floor is yours.
Well, I think it's only fair